What an amazing Met win last night. I do not deserve the honor of starting this show talking about the New York Mets. That should go to Don.
Well, an unreal, incredible, exhilarating win. And I'm 56 years old, and I've been fortunate enough to see my football team win 4 Super Bowls. You know, growing up a Devil fan, seeing 3 Stanley Cups. Mets winning in '86 in the fashion in which they did. I don't remember 73 or 69. And then you see the runs that they made after that. But Michael, you can appreciate this, and Peter, hopefully one day you will too. Everything was hitting different for me this year because I'm watching the game through the eyes of my son, who's fallen in love with the game of baseball. And to be able to watch these moments with him or showing him highlights of it, it's hitting completely different for me. And the emotional investment I have is so reminiscent of '86 when I was a young kid and the world in front of me and putting sports first and foremost in my mind just made it so much more exhilarating and so much fun. I'm reliving that now. And to see last night, it's coming to an end. You see back-to-back home runs. They can't do it again, can they? How could they do it again? But then Lindor walks. You get the hit from Nimmo, first and third, 1 out. And at that point, I'm like, something's going to happen here. And who's up? It's Pete Alonso. And I remember texting you guys, here it is. And I thought we were going to split the difference with a walk. But he does something that I just didn't think he had in him, guys. I didn't think he had it in him because he dropped the pop foul ball just the inning before. He looked like he was completely in a bad headspace. Like, this is the last place he needed to be where he was mentally. But what did Joe Garagiola say in '86? Baseball is a game of redeeming features. And that's what it was. He got his pitch. And I'm watching it sail over the fence, and it's been the Mets' mantra for the last few months. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, he hit a home run. And it's been so long. It's been, obviously, since '07 when the Giants won the Super Bowl in the fashion that they did. It's unbelievable. This team is like a zombie. They will not die, guys. They will not die. It's hard to ignore how special something is going on here. So we'll get to the Phillies in a little bit. But right now, just savor the flavor, man. Things like this don't happen very often. Matter of fact, they never happen. How shocked were you by that stat? He is the first player did a home run in an elimination game to win when his team is trailing. That's unbelievable. And Pete Alonso did it. The guy that just couldn't get out of his own way all year long was How often does it happen in sports, guys? You are gifted the opportunity to completely change the narrative of your season, to completely change the narrative of your career. And he hits the biggest home run of his life. And the Mets move on. Are you kidding me? How is it possible that they are still playing? So you got to believe it was from 1973. The late Tug McGraw said it. And it's, oh, my God, is what is the 2024 version. But for me, an old-time Met fan, you got to believe. How can you say this team can't do something? How can you watch last night, guys, and say it's impossible for this team to win a championship? It's impossible for this team to do anything. I'm not guaranteeing it, but what you saw last night was why you watch sports and you believe that literally anything can happen.
Well, there are a few things that come to mind. First of all, Don, you just saying the oh my God thing. I mean, remember how early that song became a thing. Like, that's now taken on a totally different meaning than it even had earlier in the year, which is a lot of fun. But 2 things stood out to me. Number one, I was texting most often to no response because Don was too locked in the game. Anthony would occasionally throw me a bone. But they were so dead.
Dead.
They were so dead all day. Don, I said yesterday, well, the good news is they haven't looked like the Orioles. They became the Orioles. There was nothing. They could not do anything. And that brings me to my second point. Except for Francisco Lindor, who's 2 for 3. But, guys, the walk to start the 9th. It's like this little thing, Michael. I don't know if you felt the same way. It's a small step that encapsulates why he's been so brilliant for this team this year. And I heard in the post game afterwards, right here on 880, in the dugout, the second Lindor walked, the entire Mets team stood up and was like, we can do this. The second you get a man on first, no one out, all of a sudden, Don, on a team that's been dead all night, that's practically a rally.
And don't forget, and Howie mentioned him when we had him on yesterday. Another catalyst is Nimmo. That was huge. That hit was huge because now you bring the go-ahead run to the plate, keep things going. So after Vientos strikes out, Nimmo comes up with the big. All the guys they need to go. But you are so right. It's just a walk, and it wasn't like he had that great of a series. Although he had their only 2 hits. And then he gets the walk to kind of get things going. And Michael, you know from a closer standpoint, that's got to start to rattle you. You let the lead off. Now the tying run is coming up before there's even an out.
Well, just think about what they were up against. They had not scored in 15 innings, so they looked completely dead. They gave up the lead in game 2, and maybe that changed the momentum. The only 2 hits were the Lindor hits. He should have been out at second base in the first inning. The ball was dropped, and then he had a single. That's it. That was the Met offense yesterday. Then they're going up against a guy who's considered one of the best closers in baseball. He doesn't walk a lot of batters, and he doesn't give up home runs. And in that one inning, he did both. Just absolutely unbelievable. And do not undervalue the Winker run that made it 4-2, because that changed the whole tenor of the bottom of the 9th inning, because you couldn't have Diaz go out and throw more pitches, so it had to be Peterson, and then Peterson gives up a leadoff single. Nothing's come easy for the Mets.
No.
They've made it dramatic, they've made it emphatic, and they have made it very exciting for their fan base. Now you throw in a great call by Howie Rose that will live forever, and the Mets fans have something to grab onto. Now, are they favored to beat the Phillies? No, they're not. But as Don's been saying this for about 3 weeks, this team has a little something, because going into that 9th inning, I'd say if you polled every single Met fan alive, 93% of them said no chance whatsoever. But the walk to Lindor kind of opened the door to hope. And then Nimmo, who found out right before the game that his grandmother had died, he gets a big hit, as the guy said. And then we talked about it yesterday. There was a caller on our show, Claude. He said, watch, Alonso's going to hit a home run, a 3-run home run.
No.
And then he's going to do
a 3-run home run.
A 3-run home run. And then he's going to do something really sappy, which only Pete Alonso could do, awkward. And maybe that chef's kiss could fall under awkward. So Claude called it. And I'm just sitting there watching the TV. And my son and I are looking at each other. Did that just happen? And yes, baby, it happened. This is only what? Yesterday was Wednesday, only 2 days after what happened with Lindor's home run on Monday. It's been an unbelievable stretch of games. Yesterday was Thursday, I'm sorry.
But that's what's so amazing about it. You've been down there before. This felt like Monday. They can't do anything. They can't get any offense. It's over. They're done. But at least on Monday, you knew you had a margin for error because there was going to be a game 2. And then out of nowhere, they were completely dead, shut down by the pitching for the Brewers. And give Quintana a lot of credit. I thought he pitched well. I mean, your zeros, but that takes your heart out. Back-to-back home runs on 2 Buto pitches, and you're down 2-0. But this team is just not rattled. And I don't know if you guys noticed it. I noticed it in the post-game interview. I noticed just how he conducts himself. Boy, Lindor's just cool, man. He's had his moments and he's excited, but boy, for a guy that hasn't won, he's got that like Messier or that Gibson kind of like, I've got the ring, guys. I've been here before, man. I know what to do. He's got that like calming attitude, and he just knows how to handle himself so well. And they've taken the cue from him. He's become such an amazing leader for this team, and there's no stat for that. You know, we talk about WAR and can he win the MVP. There's so many qualities that he has that don't show up in a stat sheet that really just makes this team go and to get off the mat. And I felt so good for Pete. And I'm not just a Met fan and my team won, but I just felt good for him. This must have been a very difficult season for him. Not the kind of numbers that he wants. I know he wants to stay here in New York, and the chances are dwindling by the day, and it could literally be his last at bat. So I know we talk about money and all the things that make professional athletes sometimes make you kind of sick and squirm, but just from the genuine love of the game, tell me you couldn't feel good for him as he's rounding the bases knowing what he had just accomplished.
And you know what gets me, too, about, so many people talk about how awkward he is. He's not a nozzle like most professional athletes.
No.
So he kind of comes off like every man. Why does that make him awkward? He's every man. He's not a big professional egomaniac superstar.
No. But hold on. It's totally fine. And please don't put me in a situation where today I'm killing Pete. But every Mets fan who loves him will agree. Yes, he's every man, and yes, there is something appealing about that. But he does awkward things, Michael. Last night, he made a decision. Like, if I hit a home run, I'm doing this chef's kiss thing. Like, he doesn't do nothing to be awkward. He makes choices that are awkward. You can find it lovable, Don. It doesn't make him a bad guy, but it's not simply because he doesn't have a big ego that we call him awkward.
But could it just be that he doesn't really put a lot of thought into it? It's who he is. I think professional athletes are so concerned with their image and so concerned about life after ball or how they're going to conduct themselves to be able to make money or acquire fame outside of the court, the ice, or the field. I just think he's just himself. And I always use the analogy. Aaron Judge is the guy at the pool party in the dress shirt and the khakis, having a mixed drink, talking to all the women, and there's Pete doing a cannonball. He just did that. That's him.
Don,
that's who he is.
Don, you want the perfect example? Do you see the video of Howie on the plane?
Yes.
Pete's wearing sunglasses on the plane in the middle of the night.
It could have been because his eyes were burning. I don't think he had on the goggles in the champagne. I did notice he was wearing sunglasses on the plane.
Listen, it's honestly at this point, after that moment, I view it as part of his charm. It's just who the guy is. He's never going to be Lindor. But by the way, Michael, Lindor's a regular guy who doesn't have a huge ego and isn't a nozzle, but he doesn't do awkward things either.
But you know what, guys, and maybe I'm dead wrong about this, but, I see the reaction. I've heard it today on the station. I see it on social media. Boy, he's going to parlay this into big money. I really genuinely believe that as he was rounding the bases, his big contract wasn't on his mind. He legitimately was happy that he came through for his team and that he had his moment. He wasn't happy because now Boris is going to get me a big payday.
Boris was happy.
I'm sure Boris was happy in his office for sure. But sometimes we get so caught up in the money and so caught up in the fame that why can't there just be that genuine moment of, I want to succeed here just because I want to win?
Now think
no one ever could deny the fact that he loves being a Met and he wants to win, and that's the joy that I saw him as he's rounding the bases.
It was his first extra base hit since September 19th, which is unbelievable. He's been a singles machine. He's become like almost a defensive-minded first baseman, which is the complete opposite of what he was a couple of years ago. But think about the enormity of the home run for team and for personal. How often does that intersect? I think he was definitely not going to be a Met if he didn't do anything in the Mets' loss yesterday. Now, I still don't know if he's going to be a Met. I still don't know if it's a guarantee. But he might have saved his Met career. In one swing, he saved the Met season, and he might have saved his Met career and gotten himself a contract. Might have. How many times does that happen, that the intersection of personal and team come together so perfectly? This guy, I think Joel Sherman put it out there, had not hit an important home run since April. Since April. When you look at possibility of wins and the probability of a home run, April was the last time he had a big home run. That's amazing.
And Michael, I texted Don. I don't even know if you saw the text at all. In the at bat previous, in his third at bat, I texted the group, "Here we go," and he looked completely lost.
No, but
it was a terrible at bat.
I really.
And then. Go ahead.
When he dropped the foul pop-up, I'm like, he's shot. He is in the wrong place right now. And didn't you feel that way? I mean, listen.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a difficult, not a difficult play, the netting and all, but that's a play he makes 100 times out of 100. And they were lucky they got the strikeout anyway, so it didn't cost them.
That's about as perfect as a little catchphrase could be for a certain team. Because Don and Peter, yesterday was oh my God. I mean, you're sitting there. I'm sure Met fans actually said, "Oh my God," when that ball crossed the right field wall. I mean, that's an "Oh my God" moment. It's perfect.
Well, the reason, because you're sitting there going, can they do it again? And can they do it in that kind of fashion? That's why I thought he was going to walk. Like, you're looking from even a talk show perspective. What's the narrative going to be? All right, Alonso, spits the bit again, strikes out. Game's not over, but he missed his last opportunity. Like, that's the way it's going to go out for him. His last at bat as a Met is going to be striking out, representing the go-ahead run. And then when it's 3-1, it's like, well, maybe he's going to walk, where it's not going to be anything. But at least the walk's good, bases loaded. Now maybe you get a base hit, tie the game, go to extra innings, see what you can do. That's the natural, Michael. That's the end of a movie. If there's a movie about the Mets, you're the continuity director going, I don't know if this is believable. This is a little too much. And that's why you can't. Listen, we're going to break down the series against the Phillies and pitching matchups and regular season. Don't you throw all that out when you watch this team? They just refuse to lose. And what's that worth compared to talent and regular season record and how they match up against the Phillies? Isn't that the quality you're looking for when you're trying to make a run? Is a little magic, a little something, a little belief? They've got to believe that they can accomplish anything, and that's got to help in any walk of life, especially sports.
Now, this is one of those rare football Fridays. There's going to be a lot of baseball. We'll make our picks a little bit later on. The Giants have said that Malik Neighbors is actually out with a concussion, so he's not going to play against the Seahawks. Singletary is a maybe. So the Jets are, they're in London to play. Is it London or Germany they're in? I think they're in London, right?
London.
They're in London town.
Foggy London town.
And they're playing a very tough Vikings team. So we'll get to all of that a little bit later on. Football Friday brought to you by Bet365. Never ordinary at Bet365. Now let's go to the phones and let's have you talk about yesterday. Anthony in Stony Point. Anthony.
Oh my God. It was Don. I actually cried. I swear to God, I'm 66 years old, and it was so emotional. And like you said, when he made that error at first base, I said, this is going to go down. It's not going to go well. And then when Lindor walked, I'm saying, we'll see. And it's just like, oh my God! Like, I just lost it because my dad was a big Met fan. He was a big New York Giant fan, and I just said, "Wow!" I still get emotional. I really do. This is by far the best game, the best team. They are so athletic. They really are. They're an athletic team, and God only knows what's going to happen. But right now, I'm enjoying the ride. I really am. I'm enjoying it. What's ever going to be, you just can't count them out. You just can't.
Well, that's the key. You cannot count this team out. You just can't. It doesn't make sense to do it. It just doesn't make sense to do that.
And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is impossible. What's been happening, the way that they've done it, but this team's got talent, Michael. I mean, it wasn't a fluke that they were the best team in baseball since June 1st. When you look at how things have come together. Nimmo's a really good player. Lindor might be playing better than we ever thought, but he's still a very good player. We know what Pete is certainly capable of doing. Quintana's been in this league a long time. We shouldn't be shocked that he pitched well, but just for it to come together in the fashion, just looking at Monday and last night, Michael, that's impossible.
Don, I got to stop you for a second. You know who the Mets just named a starter for tomorrow? Kodai Senga.
Oh my God.
No way.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. No, because now that's part of the script, right? The guy that hasn't been able to go all year, the one time he did go, he injures the calf, and now he's going to be the game one starter. And I guess they must have known that to have Peterson be the option to close it out.
Right.
Now, I still thought Peterson could still go because he didn't throw that many pitches, but they didn't know that when they started him in the bottom of the ninth inning, how many pitches he would have to throw. That's really interesting because as excited as you are because you know the quality of pitcher, that's a tough spot for your second start of the year, isn't it?
Wow. But, he is their ace, so now they get their ace in game one. It doesn't set up any better, right?
No, it does. It really doesn't. It really kind of changes things a little bit. And I know on our text thread that we all kind of questioned Diaz in the seventh. They said it during the broadcast, and I guess it worked. You were just kind of looking to stabilize things, right?
And he almost didn't, though.
He almost didn't, because that's the reason I wouldn't do it, is because I just hate these closers in non-save situations. It just, no matter what, even going back to Mo, like, it's not their bailiwick. It's not the way that they kind of accustomed. Especially coming in, even though it was clean, there was nobody on base. Coming in the middle of an inning. But I guess that was the logic, and it really panned out. He found himself, got through it, and was able to buy themselves a couple of innings to be able to get the team back in the game.
Let's go to John in Farmingdale. John.
Michael, Don, and Peter, what a day to be a Mets fan. How's everybody doing?
Everybody's
Unreal.
great.
What a day to be alive.
Well, first off, you got to remember, Michael, you were at the start of this in London, as you mentioned that with the Jets, with that play that Luis Torrens had the last time, the last big series against the Phillies, then to Grimace, then to the Rally Pimp, then to OMG, just to add to this turnaround.
Wait, don't leave, John. Don't leave out Hawk Tour.
Right.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Oh, yeah.
Haley
yeah.
deserves a shout out.
Yes, but last night there were so many different emotions, but the one thing in this team, and talking to some buddies around, a lot of listeners of the show, and everybody's saying the same thing, this team feels different than 2 years ago when they were in that series. You feel a lot more heart and hustle, which is the kind of ball players that I love. And I was nervous, but I felt Alonso last night, and this one's for you, Don. He had his forever Met moment, and your man, our guy, Ed Kranepool, was looking down on him proud.
Well,
Ed freaking Kranepool was so proud of what he saw last night, and I could not be more proud to be a Mets fan today.
I brought it up a couple of weeks ago when things started to look like something special was going on. There's that symmetry there. We lost Bud Harrelson. We lost Ed Kranepool. Jerry Grody. I mean, there's just a lot of things happening. And as far as the 22 team, Michael, you saw it coming in September. Getting swept by the Cubs and blowing leads. It felt, and then the Braves blew by you. So when you went into the playoffs, you felt dead. You didn't feel like there was anything going on. And that was a team that won 101 games during the year. So then you get the Mets who played their best baseball in the month of September, come in with a ton of momentum. So, yeah, this team won 89 games to the 101 in 2022, but completely different feel about this team now than you had going into the playoffs then.
Let's go to Norris in Michigan. Norris.
Gentlemen.
Hello.
I usually call in about the music most of the time.
You got to go. Back
son of a gun.
I mean, it just...
By the way, Michael, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me anything.
There's one kind of shrift I know that you can't
Hate
stand.
short
You
shrift.
hate short shrift. And I feel like I don't want to give short shrift to Quintana.
Oh, he was great.
I think because when you think about it, Don, the game was so death at that point, and the offense was doing so little that you can almost end up skipping over the fact that it was basically as good as they could have possibly hoped for. 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs. He did everything he was supposed to do and went pretty deep.
He went deep, and you know what? It seemed like there were runners on every inning, but he didn't give up the big hit. So, yeah, he deserves a tremendous.
He was great since the beginning of September, Don. He's got an ERA under 1.
He's been good. We talked about it with Howie yesterday. It seemed like he was getting better and better as the season went on. Didn't have a great performance against Milwaukee last week, but neither did Manaea. But the playoffs are different. Isn't it interesting, Michael? In 2015, when the Mets went to the World Series, they took on the Cubs in the League Championship Series and swept them. They were 0-7 against the Cubs in the regular season. The Brewers won 5 of the 6 meetings in the regular season, and the Mets go out there and still win. I guess the regular season doesn't matter, does it? It's a different animal. When do you play teams? They played the Brewers the first 3 games of the season when they started 0-5. It's a completely different team.
Now, you can always say, I mean, the Mets kept their starter in for 6 innings, and I give Mendoza credit because, I mean, managers are so nervous about that third time through the order, and he depended on his 35-year-old veteran. And the Brewers took their starter, who was brilliant, out after 5. But I don't blame Pat Murphy for that loss because, as I've said this a million times about the then Indians, when Mike Hargrove got the ball to Jose Mesa in the 9th inning with a lead, you've done your job. Pat Murphy got a lead to his closer, his great closer, so he did his job. He just went about it in a different way than Mendoza did.
Now, what I call, like, as a fan, like, let's say the Mets had the lead last night. You start counting outs. All right, how many outs away from 27? And then, all right, maybe they have Diaz for 6. So how many outs am I going to need to close this out? But you can't do that when the score's tied. You don't. It may take more than 27 outs. So,
and you know what? I thought bringing in Diaz was the wrong move. I really do.
And I did too at the moment, because now where are you going? It's a non-save situation.
Right. Where do you go in the ninth?
You know, you're not protecting a lead. Now you just, but I guess he felt like at that particular moment at 2-0, I don't want it to become 4-5-0, and he turned out to be right. Because if you leave Budo in there and he gives up a couple of more home runs, then that comeback never is allowed to happen. But you want to leave your starter in as long as you can, because you don't know how deep you're going to have to go into that bullpen. Now I know it's a winner-take-all game, so they probably could have had Peterson for 6-7 innings if they needed him to. But you don't know at that time, and the fact that he was able to go out there, Quintana, and give you 6 innings, I thought was pretty big.
Now, according to Mike Puma of the Post, Mendoza isn't saying how long Senga can go tomorrow, but he will have options behind him, including McGill and Peterson. And it's going to be Severino for Game 2.
I was going to say, is Peterson going to be the guy that does the bulk of the work? Because I can't imagine Senga's going to give you, well, he'd have to be on some sort of a pitch count. When was that calf injury, Michael? That was a while ago.
Well, he pitched 5 1/3 innings all season, making his lone start on July 26th. So that was the calf injury.
Yeah, that's a long time. So he's probably going to give you what? Maybe between 60, 75 pitches, something like that. But
maybe.
So then Peterson, who...
Well, and you got to feel nervous a little bit too, right, guys? I mean, he hasn't played at all, and then when he did, in 2 seconds he was hurt again. I have to imagine that's a high-pressure spot to show up.
Let's go to... Corinne in Manasquan.
There you go.
OMG, guys, OMG. I cannot believe what happened last night. Did you guys see the stat that the Mets had the longest scoreless streak in MLB history in winner-take-all games, and it was 29 innings long, going back to 2015?
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, so like last game of the World Series, the 2016 wild card game, and then a 2022. So Pete broke that streak. But man, classic pitcher's duel yesterday, which I love to see. Going into the 9th inning, I felt deflated, but I felt like on Monday we scored 2 in the 9th, so I felt like there was something that was possible. And then, Lindor gets on base, Nimmo gets on base, and I'm just staring at the TV screen. I'm like, Pete, you're the 2-time home run derby champ. You're the rookie of the year. I'm saying all this stuff. I'm trying to will this home run into existence. And I could not believe my eyes when that ball sailed out of there. I mean, I'm jumping up and down, tears in my eyes. I have like goosebumps. This was absolutely insane, and I can't believe we're still alive. I mean, I can believe it, but I also can't believe it. I'm just so excited for the rest of the series.
Oh, you should be. I mean, the Phillies are going to be a formidable team to get by. They really are. That's all there is to it. Now, they've announced that Sanchez is going to start Game 2, and they feel that Nola is better able to handle Citi Field and a game on the road than Sanchez. So it's going to be a Wheeler, Sanchez, and then Nola in Game 3 at Citi Field.
That's what's great. One of the most incredible weeks in the history of the Mets, considering the doubleheader on Monday and winning this series, and the Citi Field crowd outside of the ones that were there for the viewing party have yet to be able to see this team play live. That building is going to be nuts for Game 3.